Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to the Dreamerspro Podcast. I'm your host. This is going to be a weekly recap of all the things that happened in the NBA this week, excuse me. So if this is your first time to the podcast, I definitely want to welcome you guys. This is probably our fifth or sixth episode, so we're just getting into it. This week, it's been a pretty crazy week in the NBA and just the crazy week in the world with this new mysterious global pandemic. Illness that's going around is just pretty shaking up the whole world. Now, let me say it took some time for it to make its way to the shores of the United States. It had been in other countries. The place where it started was in China, and they had managed to turn China, they quarantined the whole country, basically. So China seemed to be controlling the outbreak. Then it started popping up in different places around the world. And now it's in the United States. And a lot of people didn't think much of it because, again, when something like this is happening, you don't pay much attention to it until it's happening to you or someone you know. And that's essentially what happened in the States. About 5 days ago, Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz was tested positive for the COVID-19. And the funniest thing was, the scariest thing was that there was a video of him at the end of a press conference. He was going around touching the mics and touching all of the microphones on the things on the table, basically saying that he didn't believe the hype and he didn't think it was something that was that serious. Well, it turns out right before tip-off between the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder, you saw different players on the court asking, where's Rudy Gobert? And it turned out that actually he wasn't at the game, and it turned out that he was, tested positive for this mysterious illness that's going around. And with that news, they had to immediately cancel the game and send all of the fans back home. For safety reasons, of course, which makes sense because safety is the number one thing that we have to pay. I'm sure the officials at the time were paying attention to. Now, this was a decision that was actually handed down by Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, and he himself said he was actually on his way home from work. I think he was in his car around 8 p.m. in the evening when he got that information. And what the NBA at that point had decided was they were going to play games in an open arena, in a closed arena. Essentially meaning that fans will not be able to attend the games, but they'll still be televised. Because remember, the NBA has a lot of different, TV deals. And that's where they get a tremendous amount of their revenue, not just from, the games. So Adam Silver made a swift and quick decision to cancel the game. And then he suspended the NBA season for 30 days. Subsequently, after, testing all of the Jazz players, they found out that their star player, Donovan Mitchell, tested positive for this illness. Which is crazy if you put it in perspective that their two best players ended up testing positive for this crazy thing that's going around. And I don't want to say the name too much because I don't want to perpetuate this, and it's not part of our whole thing that we're trying to do. We're not here trying to scare people. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't need to say it. And YouTube has a lot of, policies about things like this. So smaller channels like us, smaller creators, we just can't go out there and just start saying this word. We're not ESPN or CNN or whomever. But since then, it seems like Rudy Gobert has turned into the face of this thing. And a lot of people seem to be very upset with him, and he's gotten a lot of negative things spewed towards him. And now they're trying to make him the villain, so to speak. I don't think that Rudy Gobert in his sane, complete mind would knowingly go around trying to infect other people, not just his teammates, but people in the media and his own family members. Because you remember, these NBA players are around media, fans, family members, teammates. I don't think he would do that on purpose. And it's just a shame that it ended up happening to him. And he made an outward, he released a public apology just stating that he was really embarrassed for his behavior, and he urges people to take it more seriously because he didn't take it seriously. And now, look what happened. Now, since then, a lot of people have been wondering what's going to happen with the NBA season. And there are a lot of things I want to get into in this video, guys, so just bear with me. So, the league has been enacting this league-wide test where they're trying to test all of their players. And some of the results came back for one of the teams, like the Toronto Raptors. And all of the Toronto Raptors players tested negative. They tested them, and they were the last team to face the Utah Jazz, and all of their players tested negative. Now, obviously, they're practicing a lot of social distancing, but I think that's what most people are doing. Most people are just trying to make sure that they're as hygienic as possible and they're within a healthy space of each other, while these teams are in close contact with these public health, authorities, trying to make sure that they're doing the absolute right thing to make sure all of their players are fine and healthy. So that was positive news. But I think the reason why I'm reporting on that is because I want to send a message that we don't need to go into a full-blown panic-a-thon. And I think that's what a lot of the media is doing now. Granted, the World Health Organization said that likely 70 to 150 million Americans are going to be infected by this thing. But we've yet to see that. I'm not trying to undermine this pandemic. I'm just saying that let's not panic ourselves to oblivion. Now, since then, one of the things I brought up on the, on the other episode on the podcast, I was talking about the financial hit this is going to take on the NBA and how it could be a potential disaster for the revenues of the NBA. And I went into the whole China Connect, how the NBA and China are intertwined. The company that makes all of the athletic sportswear for the NBA, Nike, how a lot of their manufacturing happens in China, how the NBA markets its product in China through its players, and now with players most likely not going to be able to take the China tour this summer, players like James Harden, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and others who are all Nike players, chances are they're not going to do the China trip this summer, and I think it's going to hurt the NBA because remember, the NBA is trying to promote their game in China because China is the second biggest economy in the world and the number one manufacturer in the world. And it's really important for the NBA to make sure that they have a strong presence in China. And for players like James Harden, who plays with the Houston Rockets, he's extremely popular in China. And some of you guys might be wondering, why would James Harden be so popular in China? Because James Harden plays for the Houston Rockets, which used to be the team of the most famous Chinese basketball player, Yao Ming. So Chinese fans in China tend to really support the Houston Rockets a lot because that's where their own player played when he was in the NBA. Now, I'm not going to get into all of those nitty-gritty details of how it's going to affect the NBA in various ways. We have another video that we posted, so you guys can definitely check that out, which is called, Will This Mysterious Virus Be a Potential Disaster for the NBA? So you guys can check that out. We just uploaded it about 2 days ago. It's on the channel. If you want to hear me go in depth, really, really in depth, just check out one of the episodes that we uploaded on our Dreamerspro Podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, you can definitely follow us and go check us out on the Dreamerspro Podcast. We're on Spotify and iTunes, so make sure you go check us out. Again, I'm going to be covering content that I most likely won't be covering on the YouTube channel. This is just a weekly recap. But all of the in-depth analysis and some of the other things that I have to say about sports in the NBA, you can find all of that on the Dreamerspro Podcast, either on Spotify or iTunes. It just depends on what you guys prefer or which platform you guys use. Which brings me to another point. Given that this thing is going to affect a lot of people, various players have decided to make generous donations. To name a few, Zion Williamson decided that he was going to donate $100,000 to arena workers. I'm going to get back to Zion in a moment. Giannis Antetokounmpo dedicated $100,000 to the Bucks. Kevin Love donated $100,000 to the Cavaliers. And Blake Griffin dedicated $100,000 to arena workers, I think, for the Pistons. I'm not sure that's the team he plays for. Why is this significant? It's significant because these players understand that the arena workers, all of the people in the staff, the staff of their various teams are all one family. And it sends a good message that these players are aware of what's happening and they are in the position to take a leadership role in actually doing something, not just giving lip service. And the most astonishing one of them all is Zion Williamson. Why is Zion Williamson the most astonishing one of them all? Because Zion is a rookie. All of these other players I just mentioned all have max contracts. I'm not sure if Giannis Antetokounmpo does, but I believe he does. All of those guys are worth $50 million plus individually. Zion is not worth $50 million. Now, granted, he has a shoe deal with Nike. I believe so. No, not, is it Nike? Yes, I believe it was with Nike. Or Air Jordan, I'm not sure. And nevertheless, this 19-year-old kid is willing to donate $100,000. Bravo to him. What an example. Now, it's not my job to say other NBA players should step up and start doing the same because I'm not someone that's going to tell people how they should spend their money. No one enjoys being told how to spend your own hard-earned money. I'm just saying it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see these players doing that. And Giannis gave a quote. To quote Giannis, what he, his public statement that he released on Twitter, he said, "It's bigger than basketball, and during this tough time, I want to help the people that make my life, my family's lives, and my teammates' lives easier. Me and my family pledge to donate $100,000 to the Fiserv Forum staff. We can get through this together." Zion Williamson left a really long quote on his Instagram page. And he said, "The people of New Orleans have been incredibly welcoming and supporting since I was drafted by the Pels last June. And some of the most special people I have met are the workers in the Smoothie King arena. These are the folks who makes our games possible, create the perfect environment for our fans and everyone involved in the organization." You guys can check it out on his Instagram page. I think this is really commendable. And for Zion Williamson, a kid that's not even 20 years old, to step up to the plate and do something like that, I think is really admirable. And it shows you the importance of generosity. But it doesn't stop there. The Warriors, the organization, decided that they were going to donate $1 million to arena workers in aid. So that's another world-class organization stepping up to the plate. But it doesn't end there. The owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, who's probably the most outspoken NBA owner, recently was asked about all of the things that have transpired over the past week with this global pandemic. And he himself said that he is going to continue to pay all of his staff, regardless of the fact that the NBA season has been suspended for 30 days. I think that's commendable. Now, he admits that all of the teams are going to take a hit, but sometimes you just got to do the right thing, according to him. And I think it's good. I think it works really well for Mark Cuban. I think it works really well for the teams that are going to be donating and really supporting their staff. Because in the future, some free agent is going to be looking at the Dallas Mavericks and saying, wow, I'm going to give them a second thought because look how generous the organization is and look how well they treat their people. So if they're willing to do this for arena workers, what would they be willing to do for me. And I think that that's something that's going to go a long way. Not saying that that's the reason why Mark Cuban is doing it, but I think that it's going to go a long way in building a lot of goodwill in the public and also in the future when they're looking at, recruiting potential free agents. Which really brings me to my final points. The question is the NBA the most progressive sports league in America? Well, that seems to be the case because when this news came out, the NBA was the first one to act. Then followed golf, the NCAA, and some various different sports leagues. We haven't really heard anything yet from the NFL, at least I haven't. And some soccer leagues have also taken some actions in order to curtail this global pandemic. Which brings me back to my final point, which is what will the NBA season look like when it resumes after this suspension of games, so to speak? And I think is a really, really important question. And I spoke about this a little bit in the other podcast that we did. I'm not going to go too in depth with it because you guys can definitely check that out. Again, the name of the podcast is the Dreamerspro Podcast. You can check us out on Spotify and on iTunes. If you're hearing this on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you check out the Dreamerspro YouTube channel. But anyway, in that episode, I basically spoke about what would the NBA season look like once it resumes, because various teams were going through various things. For example, the Clippers had won 7 out of their last 10. Lakers had won 8 out of their last 2, although the Lakers had just come off a loss against Brooklyn, and the Clippers bounced back against a loss from the Lakers. So I think it's going to come down to how these various teams and their coaching staffs and their players get themselves mentally ready to get back into these games. Because remember, when the NBA season resumes, it's not a guarantee that that fans are going to be able to start attending these games. They may just play in closed arenas where just the teams, the media, the referees, and whomever. So we don't know what that's going to look like as of now. But I think that some teams are going to be affected more than others. I think more veteran teams will probably benefit from the rest. Teams that are playoff bound will probably benefit from the rest. But with rest also comes rust. And rust is the real thing if you take off too many games. You guys have seen this in the playoffs where teams will finish off another team maybe in a sweep, and then they have 5-6 days off. And by the time they pick up the next series, you can see that they're usually a little sloppy in that first game unless you're probably the Golden State Warriors or whomever. But I don't have the answer of what it's going to look like. I just think that there are going to be some adjustments that these various teams are going to have to make when the season resumes. And granted, this season is going to finish sometime in July because the regular season usually finishes sometime in June. Not the regular season, the playoffs. So they're going to have to push the NBA season further out, which is understandable and which is something that it's a bullet that all of us have to swallow, players and whomever. But with all of these things transpiring, as I said before, there's a lot of things that are out of control. And I think that everyone is going to take a hit from this. Even the players, because remember, guys, the players get paid per games that they play. And since they're not going to be playing games or whatever it is, I think even they are going to take a cut. I don't know if they're going to reduce the amount of games played or whatever it is. I don't know that yet because I don't work in the NBA. However, this is basically a summation of all the things that have happened throughout the week in the NBA and in the sports world in general. So, what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about all these things that are happening? What do you think about the 30-day suspension? What do you think about all of the generous donations that team owners and these players are making? What do you think about the whole Rudy Gobert situation? What do you think about the fact that all of the Raptors players tested negative for this illness? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I really want to know what you guys think about these particular topics, because these are the topics that are going to shape the NBA season moving forward, and probably for the foreseeable future. So whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed this video, this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified for when all of our newest and hottest content comes out. Again, if you're not following us on the Dreamerspro Podcast, make sure you do so. We're on Spotify and iTunes. Make sure you check us out. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day. And of course, make sure that all of you guys try to remain safe and hygienic. Take care of yourselves, and I'm wishing you guys all the best. Until then, catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.